and welcome to the Adam Messer Show. I'm your host, Adam Messer, and today I have a really special guest. And this last hour you were listening in, you heard me talking with Mary Kay Andrews about her new book, Hello Summer, and she's going to be doing that online book release with eShaver Booksellers. And last week, I had the opportunity to talk with a really cool guy, a very nice guy, James, aka Jim Nettles. And if you are tuning in for the first time, let me just give you a little bit of a background here. And this is off of Jim's Amazon author page. But James Nettles has a 30-year career consulting for dozens of clients for startups and Fortune 100s, media contributor, speaker on privacy, futurism, coming disruptive technologies and their impact on businesses and individual daily lives, and is a science fiction and fantasy author. He's also the founding partner for Author Essentials. So welcome to the show, Jim. Thank you so much for coming back on already. I know we were just talking last week, but I was like, man, this would be a great way to follow up. How you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me back on. Last week was a lot of fun, and it's been a really busy week. But no, really appreciate you having me back. Had a great chat last week.
Yeah, the same here, man. It was so crazy, everybody. If you didn't catch the show last week, Bobby Nash introduced us online, so we hadn't talked or anything like that prior to the show. And then, like, all these different things that we have in common. Like, you have a background in business and leadership and tech, and that's my background is a business and leadership and tech. And you like to write, I like to write. You like helping others, I like helping others. I was like, oh, this is kind of like a Twilight Zone episode, man. So, and then you brought up the Highland Games, and I was like, well, I don't do that, so that's a good one. we,
Yeah, the announcement came out yesterday. The grandfather is going to be canceled this year. I think we all pretty well knew that.
yeah,
But
yeah, I saw you posted about that, and I think that's the responsible thing to do with large events and gatherings. I know that especially here in Georgia, certain sectors of business are reopening, and we're trying to phase back in. But with everything, folks out there, just if you're having any kind of issues or whatever, just make sure you take care of it. Matter of fact, Jim, I'm going to read this for folks that might need it. This is a message from the Georgia State Department of Public Health. There's a state of Georgia hotline people can call with questions or if they think that they might have been exposed to the COVID-19 virus. The number is 1-844-442-2681. If you believe you're experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 or have been exposed to the novel coronavirus, please contact your primary care doctor, an urgent care clinic, or your local federally qualified healthcare center. Please do not show up to an emergency room or healthcare facility unannounced. So I just want to put that out there. Yeah, there's a lot of gatherings. Matter of fact, we were talking last week about Consolation, which is like an online Facebook group that your friends and you kind of run, right?
well, there's Consolation, which I am a member of. I was one of the early members of. That's
Oh, it's
kind of
Continuation. I got them
right
switched. I'm sorry.
continual. Yep, no worries. Actually, both of them are good to talk about. So Consolation is kind of a parody. And
Oh yeah.
I'm in and out of there, and I've had a bit of fun in there. It's just a matter of when I've got time to go in. But it really is, I mean, as fast as it grew, it really shows, we're all sitting out there looking to get, a lot of fun, have some feedback, but also be able to still have some semblance of normalcy.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you do a lot of conventions, the normal chaos. I can't say the conventions are normal for those of us that usually do them on the other side, but you've gotten to see a lot of stories that happen at real conventions just told in very, very parodied ways.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Continual, and I'm one of and so Gail Martin really founded it, and then John Hartness of Falstaff Books and I, sort of came in pretty quickly. This is something we've been working on for a while, or at least been talking about now for a couple of years, and pulled together Continual to be kind of the other side of conventions. it's the business side. While we're still doing a lot of the fun stuff, it's really meant to be the informational side, the networking side, the gathering side.
Mm-hmm.
So it's craft, it's the business, but we're still bringing some fun in there. You probably also saw my same post yesterday talking about the fact that Con Carolinas is going fully digital,
Yeah,
and fully virtual for this year.
yeah.
We've been looking at, and I'm the science and tech director for Con Carolinas. We've been looking at and talking about doing more virtual content about that for a while as well. And so we now officially have partnered Continual with Con Carolinas. Con Carolinas is going to be the first convention that we host and take digital. And of course, my hands are sort of dirty on both sides. But
Well, that's great
so
news, Jim. That's really good news.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We just had a call earlier today, kind of starting to nail down the content. We've been working on doing that for about 6 weeks.
Well, let me know if you might need an extra guest or something. Not to plug myself, but I would love to participate on a panel or something like that if y'all are doing those.
Well, and there's some interesting stuff, and so one of the things that we're looking at is, Con Carolinas right now happens once a year.
Mm-hmm.
But with Continual, it's going to give us a digital platform. So I'm going to go ahead and make the announcement here, even though it's not come out publicly yet.
This is a world first, everybody. This is awesome.
Well, hey, welcome to get a first that I'm probably not allowed to announce. So we'll go ahead and do that anyway.
Yeah. This is live radio, y'all. So, yes. Go ahead, Jim.
Hey, it's live radio, and if there's a place for me to get in trouble, I usually can.
As long as you don't cuss or we're not going to talk about any kind of adult suggestive language, we're going to be okay. So, yeah.
So one of the things that we've wanted to do, and there are several other conventions we're talking about doing this with as well, we're going to do like a quarterly Con Carolina sponsored content weekend. It'll be kind of like a mini con,
like a one-day type event type thing.
Well, it may be just a couple of panels. It may be a full one-day sort of thing.
Okay.
But what we're gonna be doing for the month of May, and I can't tell you yet when the first ones are going to drop. We're going to do a couple of live panels. Right now, we're planning to start on May the 9th. We're going to do kind of like a mini con the weekend of May the 9th with a couple of panels, so you can get a little bit of a feel for what we're doing. And probably do the same thing the weekend of the 9th, the weekend of the 16th, and the weekend of the 23rd, and do just sort of like a couple of panels of programming. They're going to be, we're planning to do them live. We may bring in some pre-recorded content as well. The planned weekend for Con Carolinas was May 29th to 31st, and so that's still going to be the major weekend we do, and we're going to pretty much do content all weekend long.
Oh, there you go.
And it's going to be a mixture of panels talking about craft, panels on talking about business. We're going to be having programming from all of our different tracks: writing track, science and technology track, paranormal track, new media track, fandom. We're trying to work on how we're going to do costuming. So it's going to be a complete mini-con online. We're going to have some fun events. We're going to have some live music, some live entertainment. Our guest of honor is Butch Patrick. And so he's still going to come on and do.
Oh, great.
So we're still coming in to be able to do a lot of the live content.
So let me ask you real quick on that, Jim. With them doing it virtually, online, are they foregoing ticket fees this year, or how are they going to do that? Because I know typically, to get into convention, y'all, if you don't go to any of these geek conventions or nerd conventions or whatever, Comic Cons type thing, they usually have a fee, and sometimes they'll have like a 1-day fee, sometimes they'll have like a weekend pass. People buy their tickets like for example, like Dragon Con, people buy the tickets the day that the tickets are open, that kind of thing. So that's what I was just curious, because it does cost for like guest appearances and things like that. But with it going online, how are y'all planning on handling that?
I appreciate you asking that. So we have decided, and this is partially my decision because we're just not going to have the infrastructure totally in place. For this Con Carolinas event, it's going to be totally open, totally free.
Even better. Even better. There you go.
We may have a couple of very small workshops or some virtual meet and greet type things that may have a little bit of a premium price on them, just to help defray some of the costs. But pretty much we're planning to bring all the content to you. We are a nonprofit, so, and when I say we, being the nonprofit, that's Con Carolinas.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have like a tip jar out there, basically for anybody that can, to make a donation to help cover the cost of the event and the convention. But half the money right now we're planning on will go to the convention. The other half will go to the charities. We're trying to still structure what all that's finally going to be, and it'll be out there big and in writing. But that's kind of what we're working off of, is that it'll be a split to help cover and defray some of the expenses of the convention, because even though it's going online, we still have licenses to pay. There's still operational costs. So, Con Carolinas, but we want to bring this out there. We still want to provide the content. Going forward as a convention, we will be looking forward to doing more stuff that's a mixture of both free content, but we're also looking with some of the conventions we partner with where if you've bought a ticket to a convention, you'll be able to get a digital ticket as a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've never been to a convention, there's usually anywhere between 2 or 3 tracks going, or if you've been to Dragon Con, it could be 200 or 300 tracks going. So you're never going to be able to see and hear everything that's happening.
So, speaking of Dragon Con, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, yeah, we can come back to Dragon in just a minute. But, I mean, you never can see and hear all of the content.
Mm-hmm.
So this way you'll be able to see and hear it and be able to go back and reference it. And so we're also looking to be able to support that thing in the future of selling online tickets and whatnot. But we still want to make sure we're bringing a lot of free content. This week we're launching the first new original show on the Continual channel, which is called The Panel Room. Which the first few episodes are John, Gale, and myself, and Jason Tonger, who is our moderator for that zoo. And Jason is coming in as our novice writer, kind of getting to come and represent the audience. But we're also soliciting questions. So we're kind of throwing out there, hey, this is the topic we're talking about. The next one is on social media. That's already been done and recorded, and that'll be a couple of episodes. And then we've got some nice surprises coming with a lot of experts and a lot of specialists, for example, in the medical field.
That's awesome, Jim. Hold that thought. I got to do a station ID real quick. Everybody, you're listening to WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. So backing up here for a second, Jim, because you kind of skipped past that Dragon Con thing. I saw where they announced that they're still planning on doing Dragon Con, and then I read this article that a lot of folks, there's contracts that are involved, right? And there's, usually ticket prices and fees and things like that. But one of the things that they were bringing up was like they're so far out. Not this is not from Dragon Con. This is from like an opinion article. But they were talking about like the force majeure clause in the contract, which is like for folks out there, it's kind of like an act of nature or an act of God, that is prevents the, so like right now with the pandemic, and there's a lot of things that are shut down, so they can't avoid having to cancel an event or push it back or whatever. So can you talk a little bit, because your background is in business, can you talk a little bit about that with contract tort law? And,
sure.
How, like maybe an example you've seen, because folks, it's the convention world or whatever. If you're not used to it, or like, let's just say you just go as a fan and you never tabled and you never set a convention up, you never, run an event yourself or anything like that. You're a fan. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And as much as I love, hanging out and, having fun, you also hear like these horror stories where people, got shorted, or, the convention event coordinator, just kind of was a shady person or whatever. So can you talk a little bit about like the force majeure and how that's a big factor this year?
So for I'll tell you a little bit of the story for Con Carolinas. and then we'll talk about a little bit bigger picture. For Con Carolinas, we were having a lot of very significant debates about could we put on the convention safely.
Mm-hmm.
So with hotels and with businesses, I know a lot of people are thinking in terms of, well, it's big business, they've got deep pockets. That's not necessarily true, and in fact, I just put an article out there a little while ago that I shared out from my sister that was about the number of major retailers that are going bankrupt. Mm-hmm. Neiman Marcus has just fired their entire executive staff. Mm-hmm. And I mean, so that's CEO, president, the entire executive staff has been fired. That's usually not a good sign.
Right.
So if we then carry over and remember, there's two kinds of conventions. There's ones like Con Carolinas, and Dragon Con and things like this that are fan-run, mm-hmm. that don't necessarily have a paid staff. Dragon Con, because of its size and everything else, does have some paid staff, but pretty much everybody that runs it is a volunteer. These are people that are not only are they not getting paid to be there, at most they're getting a free ticket to come in for volunteering their time. Con Carolinas, we don't have any paid staff. There's a lot of the guests and things that we pay. There's a lot of expenses we pick up. For example, if you're flying in a guest, you're picking up hotel rooms and things like that. But for most of the guests and attendees, the most they're getting is going to be a ticket or a badge. And then they're paying for their table space. They're paying for these other things. For the convention itself and the organization, you're booking and you're getting into legal contracts with hotels, convention centers, places like this. Mm-hmm. And often, depending on what it is, you may be paying deposits. You may be paying for flights up front. You may be doing a lot of things. So there's a lot of expense that goes into it, not to mention marketing, because, for example, you may travel and do most of the conventions support each other. So usually you'll have some people there that are supporting the convention. There's a lot of expenses that go into it, whether the convention happens or not.
Yeah.
So when you look at something like you have a contract with a hotel to say, we're going to come in, if you've never done a deal with a hotel, it is very structured. A lot of the time, you may be paying for convention space, but what they say is, if you sell X number of hotel rooms, then we'll knock this much off your convention space, the hope being that you can put enough people in hotel rooms so that you get the convention space, I won't necessarily say for free because it's not exactly free, but between the rooms that you book and you're paying for and the ones of the rest of your guests, that'll give you your convention meeting space. Mm-hmm. If you don't meet those minimum guidelines and those minimum requirements, then you're looking at having to write a significant check of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars or even more. So it's not cheap to put on a convention, and I've seen a lot of people posting and saying X, Y, and Z should cancel what they're doing and just not do it.
Well, I have a personal example of that too, because I had started the Savannah Quill convention in 2016, and I ran it. It's an indie authors convention is what it is. And 2016, the hurricane blew us out, so we had to reschedule. 2017 and 2018, I hosted them at one. I hosted at the National Guard Armory, and then the other one I hosted at the Cottonwood Suites, which is off of 95. And so everything that you're saying is like stuff that I had to experience. It is expensive. I mean, even for like a one-day event, it just depends on where you get your venue, folks that you're listening in, but it doesn't matter how many attendees you have. The hotel, it's a business, and they're running as a business, and so they want to make sure that they're going to provide all their services, But like for example, the hotel that I had, they offered us a discount for people that wanted to stay at the hotel. They didn't even offer any kind of like compensation where if I had so many people show up for that. And it's different because it was an indie author thing, so most people are not going to come out and spend the night for that like they would for a comic book convention. But one example I had was talk to a hotel downtown. I don't want to say their name, but they asked for a $10,000 guarantee on food.
Yep.
So there are a lot of hidden expenses, folks, when you're if you ever thought about doing it, there's a lot of hidden stuff. So kind of circling back to that contract thing, though, I asked you about the force majeure. Can you dive into that more?
Sure.
Yeah.
So usually most contracts have a clause in them known as force majeure,
Mm-hmm.
which means you're not able to hold your event.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some external influence, whether it is a weather event, whether we're in right now a pandemic where governments are saying you can't hold a gathering over X size.
Right, right.
Something has happened with the hotel so that they can't support your event, which also happens. What that means is you as an event and the hotel are both held not liable for the expenses related to it. So, let's take.
Can
for
you break it
example,
down for the attendees? Because I think the majority of folks that are listening that would be attendees. Can you kind of break it down for them, like why a lot of these conventions are having to wait to say we're canceling or whatever?
So and so if we look at that, what it takes to execute the force majeure clause typically means you have to have one of a couple of things. The company that owns the hotel or whoever owns that hotel or venue has an incident happen that they come out and say, we can't go on because of this reason.
Mm-hmm.
But right now what this means, because you have to remember, these hotels employ people. Mm-hmm. They've got ongoing expenses, even if their doors aren't open.
Yeah.
They're all hurting too.
Oh, yeah.
So where they're at, and the corporate contracts generally say, either A, unless we're in a position where legally we're being told you can't have your event, you're still on the hook.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means for you as an attendee and what that means for us as an event organizer, unless we're in a position where the government literally puts in provisions that say you can't hold your event because you are larger than what we're saying legally can gather, then what that means is we as an event are still legally obligated to either put the event on and still meet the contractual obligations, or we cancel the event and then still have to write the check to the venue.
And with no possibility of any kind of return on that at all.
Right.
So
I mean, it's just an absolute
it's a loss.
And
yeah.
what that means for a lot of these, or what that would mean is bankruptcy, or a lot of these events would never happen again.
It's over. Yeah. It's like they'd have to shut down, right?
So as a con attendee, you may look and go, well, it cost me $30 to go to an event.
Mm-hmm.
They've made a whole lot of money. Usually what you find, especially for a nonprofit event, most of that money, a little bit is kept for seed money for the next year. Mm-hmm. To cover expenses, but pretty much everything else either goes to the expenses or to the charitable groups they're working with. If it's a for-profit, that's a different game.
Yeah, and that's the way I did mine. Even though I was the sole proprietor, I set it up so that I would do donations with the charity, and I didn't make any money off of the first 2 years, and then this last year, I hosted it in 2019. I actually partnered up with a local venue here in town, I downsized big time, and was able to. We had about 50 people show up in the small venue, but it was a lot better because I partnered with a smaller convention, not a convention, but a smaller place, and I was able to not have to charge for table fees and things like that. So yeah, it's kind of weird being on both sides because I've vendored at conventions before, and then I've run my own mini con or whatever you want to call it since 2016, and it's hectic. I could after not making any money the first 2 years, I was like, I can't do this again. I can't just. First of all, it's not good for the folks that are coming out as vendors or whatever. So they're not going to want to come out to a convention that's not bringing in a bunch of people. And if you're a mom and pop and you're trying to get something started, especially if it's not going to have cosplay and other things like that, or not going to have live music and things like that, you have to really, the people that, and I love the people that came out because those folks are the hardcore folks that they wanted to be there kind of thing. But as far as oh yeah, my buddy Bill Cooper, he actually is in the studio right now, but he came by. But when you have a bigger convention like Con Carolinas or something like that, you have that responsibility to the guests and to the vendors, to your staff. I mean, there's a lot of different layers there. So, I think it's really cool how you and your group, you're focusing on helping these, smaller conventions or bigger conventions, trying to get, through this issue, this issue of the pandemic, and, be able to survive through, next year. And I know a lot of people are
Well,
disappointed. I've heard stuff online. People are like, oh, but at the same time, I think it's a good
what we're
choice. Yeah.
what we're doing is not only for the conventions, because I mean, from a selfish standpoint, because we all have to have a little bit of that. It's part of the business. It's part of us getting out there and meeting people and networking with people.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
It was cutting
did we
out. Can you
lose
hear
it?
me? Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay, there you go. I don't know. We had a little technical difficulty there. Sorry, y'all. So what were you saying there?
From that selfish standpoint, as an author, as a creator, as a vendor, as a service provider, yeah, I go to conventions. I have a lot of fun, but they're work for me. It's there. I'm there from a business perspective. I still go. I still have fun. I enjoy it. I love being there, and I love meeting people. But if you're just there as an attendee, it's easy to look at it, and half the people are looking and saying, I'm not going to go because of health reasons and health concerns. You should just cancel the convention so I don't have to feel the guilt of not going. And the other half are sitting here going, we're stir crazy. We want to go. Put it on anyway. And so the force majeure clause is that point where it protects everybody. And it's coming in this case because the government's the one that says so. But when you look and say, should we have canceled Con Carolinas in March? We couldn't.
Right.
Had we done it then, and we had some debates then as to what we were going to do, because, again, we did have some conversations. If we could not put it on in a healthy and safe way, we were going to have to make some very hard decisions. So, as an attendee, remember that a lot of this is being put on by volunteers, which somebody still has to take the hit, make the decision, make the hard decisions, and take the financial risk. Because even in good years, there's a risk where people have to sign their name on the lines for a contract. And if nobody were to show up to your convention, then somebody's still on the hook for all of that. So
That's what happened to me, Jim. I mean, the first year I had like 100 people come out. The second year we had like 30, and last year we had like 50. And so last year was a lot smaller venue. I had a lot less, vendors or authors or whatever. But we had about 50 people come out for the whole day, and I think it was a better fit and a better venue. And we're doing it again. I don't know if we're going to be actually able to do it again this year or not, but the plan is to try to do it again in November. But yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. It's like like before when I was a vendor, you have your table space and you have those kind of things. But grand scheme of things, you're not the one on the hook, like you said. You're not the one that has to pay for the contract and that kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit more about actually let me do the station ID stuff, but I want to talk when we come back from the break. I want to talk about the vendor side of it, because you've got some conventions out there that they're not just tickets but also vendor fees and stuff like that. So I want to talk about that right after the break, if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely.
Cool.
From the Georgia State Department of Public Health. When the Georgia Department of Public Health gets a lab-confirmed case of COVID-19, they will let the public know. The Georgia Department of Public Health updates its website, dph.ga.gov, every day at noon with a map of confirmed cases around the state of Georgia. More information can be found at dph.ga.gov. Now, you have a chance to support both Savannah Independent Artists and WRUU during this shelter-in-place order to stop the spread of COVID-19. Creatives in Need is a group of independent artists hosted by the Roots Up Gallery, which is collaborating with WRUU during this shelter in place to offer an online art gallery at www.rootsupgallery.com. For every work of art sold at this online gallery, the artists receive 80% from the sales and 20% goes to WRUU and its programs like Art on the Air. Interested listeners can go to www.rootsupgallery.com to start shopping today. Voting is now open for Connect Savannah's annual Best of Savannah Readers Poll, and WRUU is once again on the ballot. Last year, you voted us best in the local radio station and talk radio station categories. Continue your support of WRUU 107.5 FM by again voting for us in the Best Local Radio Station and Best Local Talk Radio Station categories. And this year, vote for your favorite WRUU morning program and favorite WRUU host. Voting ends at 11:59 p.m. sharp on Sunday, May 3rd, and results will be revealed the night of Tuesday, May 19th. For details and voting, visit connectsavannah.com. And as always, thank you for listening to, supporting, and voting for WRUU LP Savannah.
All right, everybody, and we are back. So yeah, you still have time to go vote. If you would like to vote for WRUU, just go on to the Connect Savannah and check us out. My special guest today is James, aka Jim Nettles, and we've been talking about some of the nitty gritty of convention stuff because Jim, you do a lot of stuff with conventions, and like right before the break, I was asking you if you could talk more about like the vending side of it, because you talked a little bit about the admin side of it, and we talked a little bit about like the guest side of it. What does this mean for vendors? You know, folks out there who are typically, you know, running a table.
Well, and for right now, it's really difficult because I mean, we know a lot of folks that make their living vending events, conventions, having online stores, you know, playing venues. I mean, you know, everything from people that do handcrafted artisan goods, musicians, authors, make a lot of their living by being at conventions. And that comes not just from that hand-to-hand meeting with somebody the first time, but if you buy a book and you enjoyed the first one, you start ordering the next ones. You follow people online. You tell people about, I got my book, you know, this author. I love this music. I got this best from this vendor. You know, it's a massive hit. And that was one of the big inspirations behind us for doing this work for Continual. You know, we're putting a lot of money, a lot of work, and a lot of investment into doing this to help support friends. You know, we are building it out to be part of a business model and everything else. As a vendor at a convention, we've got one that is sitting on the bubble in July that a number of us are scheduled to be at, and we're really kind of having to debate it because if it gets canceled, our booth fees, which for this particular event were pretty expensive, it'll get rolled over till next year, and this is something we had to pay for last fall. So that means that's an investment we'll have made that we won't potentially see a return on for almost 2 years.
Right.
Or if it does go on, now we're adding to that risk the additional hotels, travel, all the other stuff. So if we go, are we going to have anybody show up and attend for the event? So we're taking on additional financial risk to be there. So, and I suspect most of the events we're looking at and talking about for at least probably the next year, are going to see some reduced attendance. You know, at one point we were talking about when Con Carolinas was going to be the first event coming out after the CDC's recommended window. The question we had was, are we not going to have anybody show up, or is everybody going to be so ready to get out that we're going to get flooded? Both of which are problems to have. Mm-hmm. We can't say, you know, we don't know what this July event looks like. So as a vendor, I'm having to sit there and plan for both being there and being on site for an event. I'm also having to plan and the cost and the investment for that, which will be at a higher risk. Do I order inventory? Because I've got to order inventory and have that in far enough in advance to make sure that it's in. Because right now, I mean, something that usually you wait 2 or 3 weeks for, you could be looking at 2 months.
Yeah, especially if you're an indie
inventory,
author or something like that, or you're getting stuff from Amazon. So for example, the T-shirts that I make use Amazon, and their T-shirt production is shut down right now. You can't even order my shirts on Amazon because their factory is shut down. So yeah, there's a lot of things that are being affected. I mean, and if you're looking at that and trying to do it, like you said, there's a lot of factors that are kind of involved this year that normally aren't as much of an issue, right?
Right. So I mean, supply chains, supply lines, it's all just a mess. And I mean, it's it obviously it affects us as indies pretty heavily. It's affecting major publishers. In fact, one piece that I'm delivering this week, the publisher has already said we're pushing the date out for it to go in publication because we're basically shut down. We're pens down right now, even though we want to get the material in on time and on deadline. And I work really hard to make sure I hit my deadlines, even though sometimes it's, going back to being a kid at school, it went out at 11:59 on Tuesday night, but it was there Wednesday morning.
Right.
But this is affecting the entire industry and every industry. And if you're an indie that is now surviving on what would have normally been your investment cash flow, so that you had materials and money to buy books, inventory, whatever it is, right now it's hammering you. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And because it's not like I've got a job that when the job opens back up, I'm going to show up and at least be getting paid. As an indie author, as an indie producer, an indie creator, as a vendor, this right now is a nightmare for cash flow. And I think we started talking about it a little bit too. This is a nightmare too in cash flow for major corporate entities. There's going to be a lot of people that financially don't survive this hit.
Well, I'll give you an example, Jim, talking about that very issue. There's a guy that I follow. I don't want to say his name, but he's an author, and he's been relatively successful as an indie author. And he primarily publishes through Amazon and, that kind of thing. And he made a really heartfelt statement yesterday saying that he is going to have to quit publishing his books because he has had a significant drop off in his sales. So there are folks out there that are, that this is, they vend, they do, indie stuff. They work for themselves. They might make jewelry, or they might, do art commissions or whatever, indie. There's a bunch of different things, but they're having to see this is, I guess, the unexpected. It was definitely unexpected, but it's also like the downside of offering entertainment and luxury items, because when, the crunch hits, those are usually the first things that go. I mean, I know there are a lot of people out there reading, but it might not be on the top of their list.
Let's actually talk a little bit about what it takes to produce a book as an indie author. Because I think this will help bring, I mean, I know a lot of you guys may have seen memes running around going, you're willing to pay $4.99 for a cup of coffee that's going to last you a half an hour, and you're not willing to pay 99 cents for the book you're sitting down to read over the next number of days.
Right.
If you are taking your work seriously, and let's say you've written an 80,000 word novel, okay, let's just a nice 90,000 word novel. By the time you've gone, you've paid for editing, covers, some basic marketing, blurb reviews and whatnot. You're starting at $2,500 to $3,000 out the door, or more.
Right.
I mean, other authors I know, could be looking at thousands of dollars just for the cover.
And that's for the services. We're not talking about vanity publishing like we were talking about last week. We're talking about legit services for you to be able to publish yourself.
Right, exactly. And thanks for bringing that back up. I mean, we're talking about you've got, an author is out there having to pay other people that specialize to give you the best product possible. One of the things I did as I took the Business Essentials for Writers book, I dropped it to 99 cents.
Mm-hmm.
I did that for the pandemic because I want as many people to be able to get a hold of that and use it as a resource and find value out of it. What that means for me, and we won't talk about what the investment was to bring that to market because that's a whole different story. But what that means is because of dropping into that price, that means that from an Amazon standpoint, I'm basically getting about 33 cents a sale.
Mm-hmm.
And so just factor that's it, the ROI to pay for the average investment. You're talking about having to sell 9,000 or 10,000 books.
Now,
and
that's just to break even, right?
Right. That's just to break even.
That's not to make any money. That's just to break even, y'all.
Right. Normally the ebook sells for $4.99. The physical books are like $17 if you can get to them. I sell a fair number of those. I do a lot of those at conventions. One of the conventions that I was supposed to be at this weekend, RavenCon in Williamsburg, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
I normally teach some workshops there, do some other stuff. It's been very good to me over the years, and it's one of the ones I love to go to because it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to raise funds for next year and help cover the operating costs for what they've had for the loss this year. And they hit up a number of us authors and creators and vendors and whatnot and said, hey, we're trying to do an auction. And one of the things I gave to them was 5 ebook versions of the Business Essentials for Writers. But I said with each one of those they sold, I would give them a half an hour, whoever bought one, I'd give them a half an hour consultation.
Oh, there you go.
Sit down, discovery, chat.
That's a creative way to get out there and reach people.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I do a fair number of calls with potential clients and whatnot, but I'm like, we can sit and talk about anything they want to talk about and deep dive, and the odds of me going for just a half an hour on anything are slim and none.
No, not you, Jim.
I can talk.
I mean, not you, man. Are you serious? No, I tell you what, I love it though, because that's one of the things I feel is a good indicator for someone if they're let's just put it this way. Let's just say legit. If they're a legit person, they have different things that they offer. Same thing with me. I try to when I help someone out, I don't. I'm asking them questions about them and what they're trying to do and what their goals are and where they're at. I'm not trying to sell them anything. And that's one of the things I do enjoy so far. I've met you through this phone conversations that we've been having. You seem like you're doing that as well. You try to take care of what your client needs or whatever. And the fact that you're on here talking with us about, some of the backstory stuff that people don't usually get to see, kind of like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtains. I mean, it's just another great thing that you're doing. So I appreciate it, man.
Well, I mean, again, it's if you're doing good work and you're doing the right stuff for people, money is going to follow. I mean, working with business clients, working with other clients and whatnot. I mean, because we bring the same principles and practices I would working with a business client,
right?
Working with anything else. So to sit and have a conversation and try to help people. I mean, if you meet me at a convention and you catch me, I'll do bar hours. I'll sit down and have office hours with you in the bar and talk about whatever you want to do and talk about. I pretty much at this point, enough people know me that a lot of the time I have to tell people, book your hours before I ever get to the convention because my schedule's already getting full.
Mm-hmm.
It's not unusual for me to be doing 8, 10, 12, 13, 18 hours of programming in a convention. So imagine on-site somewhere for 48 hours, and so, say 20% of that time is scheduled out the gate just on programming.
Wow. Wow. Everybody, you're tuning in today and listening to WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. Yeah, Jim, I mean, it's so weird because when I used to work, I worked a bunch of the conventions around Savannah, and I would do photography. I was like a convention photographer. One of the conventions, I remember I worked like 16-hour days doing photography, just going around the thing and, having a good time, but also it was just work. And it was like nonstop. And then trying to get the photos done and uploaded, when I go home and whatever. And yeah, it can be exhausting. So that was, and that's not me doing consultation because that's a whole nother thing. How in the world are you doing that much mental work when you're doing these conventions? Because I mean, it is, it's a incredible task to be able to not only solve your own problems, but then to be able to, size up what someone else is dealing with and come up with a resolution for them on the spot. How do you do that?
That's what I get paid to do. I hate to phrase it that way.
Oh
But,
man, you did that to me. Come on, Jim. Come on, man. Come on. You're like, I'm getting paid for it. I'm like, what?
No, I mean, when I say scheduling bar hours, that's not charging clients.
No, I know that, but I mean, like,
more than I'm here to convention.
you're still doing the same thing for them, even though you're not charging them.
Sit here and, no, I'm not charging people at a convention. That's by no means what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I mean, for clients, and I mean, I traveled 48 weeks a year for 20 years.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
I've done a lot of different things. So I spend a lot of time working on my craft. I spend a lot of time keeping myself educated. I grew up in small business.
Yeah.
I would by no means say that I don't want to come out the way it's going to. I'm not kind of your average author in there. Because of my background. I am a writer and an author of fiction because I enjoy it. That's what helps keep my sanity. And I love the fact that people have found joy and benefit out of both my fiction and nonfiction writing.
You're a business person who happens to write, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've written for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some books that have sold very well, and I'm very fortunate in that. I've got some that haven't. You never know what's going to fly or what's going to work. But if you to sit there and do that, I'll give you a rundown of what my average convention shows looks like. For example, let's take RavenCon. If I'd have been there this weekend, we'd have gotten in about 2:00 in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
A number of us would have probably caravanned up. We'd have grabbed a bite somewhere along the way. We just sat there and talked about all the stuff we talk about. We gotten in. It would have been unloading all the inventory stuff coming in, setting up a table. I've got several author friends that we usually split tables with because I'm moving and running my mouth, and I occasionally show up at my table. I unpack everything. I start socializing and start seeing the usual suspects. Then the next thing is I start talking to track directors. What do we have for programming? If there's anything we need to arrange and sort out then. By then it's maybe 5 o'clock. I probably have done one panel by then. And then it's wide open for programming. If I'm not on programming, then I'm either going to be in the dealer room, at my table at my booth. I'm going to be meeting with somebody who either I'm wanting to meet with and consult with because I'm asking them questions, or somebody's booked office hours with me, out there networking. And then if I'm not, once the dealer room is closed, or wherever we're at, I'm on programming, I'm on panels, or I'll be in the bar. And, BarCon is where a lot of the deals get hammered out. It's where you get to meet and hang out with friends, fans, network, do all this sort of thing. And I'll be running until 1, 2, 3 in the morning. I'm back up at 6:30, 7 o'clock. Mm-hmm. We're doing breakfast. First meetings start. All day Saturday you run. Saturday night, again, I'm back. It's 1, 2, 3 in the morning. Back up 7:30. You're on. You're doing programming. You're in the dealer room. You get packed up. Then you've got 3, 4, 5 hour drive home. Get home at midnight to get ready to then start doing business the next day.
Right. That's
I
what I'm
mean,
saying. I mean,
that
it's
for me
mentally
is,
exhausting. Yeah, how do you do it?
um, I am one of those weird people. As long as I'm moving, as long as I'm talking, I can keep running. Now, I will tell you, Dragon Con is a different experience. Somewhere along the way, after about 72 hours, if I haven't, when you're averaging 2 or 3 hours a night of sleep, my average is about 5. So if you're running on 2 or 3 hours a night every night, and you're running, 20 hours a day, at some point you start to get a little mushy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little fatigue.
And I've got friends at various places and keepers and whatnot that'll look at me and go, just occasionally stop me and go, stop, you're going to stop, you're coming with me, you're going to go eat. I got a panel now. Fine, I will be standing outside with your panel door. It's always good to have your handlers and whatnot that make sure that
Back up.
That'll stop and ask you.
When you say
eaten
handler,
today?
that's not a bad word out there, everybody. That's a like industry term that people use for assistants, basically people that help you with different things. They call them a handler in the business.
So it's we kind of share some of those folks. So sometimes they're doing their and actually acting as an assistant, keeping notes, whatnot, making sure that when I tell somebody, sure, we can do that, there's somebody that makes sure that we actually do and deliver that. Because there are times that if we're sitting down to have a business meeting to talk about doing and delivering something, again, I'm running wide open, and one of my people will be there and help us out, make sure that she says, now remember, when you just said you're going to agree to do that, you also have these 12 things that are due between now and then.
Right.
Who's doing that work?
How are you going to juggle this?
So, but most writers, if you were taking a much more average writer, they're doing panels. They're doing 4 to 6 hours of panels. They're in the dealer room. They're in BarCon. They're working to get 6 hours of sleep a day. They're wanting to network. They're wanting to spend time with friends. And you've got to pack all of that to very dense times. And then when you get home, you're just fried and you crash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I know, and I've never really done a big convention, but I know just when I've hosted my own events, it's go, 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 go. So, I'm very happy to, have some really nice folks that help out, and, that helps. It's incredible. And I think the payoff for it is, the relationships that you build, the friendships you make, the connections that you make. We've got like
we would not.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we wouldn't be building Continual, except for we're building it to an extent for our friends and for our network of people that are being impacted. We've been talking about it. We've been working on it. But this is a big community effort. And if it weren't for that network of people, A, we couldn't build it, and B, we nobody'd know it was built anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree on that. I mean, nothing happens without the folks that are involved. We've got like about a minute or so left, Jim. Where can people check out Continual and also your author stuff? Just 2 websites.
Sure. So you can find me at jamespnettles.com. You can find Author Essentials, our services, our education stuff at authoressentials.net and authoressentialsworkshops.com. You can find Continual on Facebook. The website, which is continualconvention.com, should be up this week. You can mainly find us on Facebook, but we're starting to drop content into YouTube, Twitch, Facebook Lives, a few other platforms as well. So when the site is up, please come by, check us out, follow what's going on, and you can find out a whole lot of different stuff from other different creators.
That's so awesome, Jim. Thank you so much for coming back on the show today, and kind of peeling back the layers and showing, sharing with us, like some of the other stuff that people don't get to see when they're doing conventions. I really appreciate you being here.
Well, I appreciate you having me back on, and love to come play again.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. So, all right, everybody, stay tuned because